For joining us for this session today. Indeed, it is really refreshing to see everyone in person here after seeing all of you on screens. I think some of us have interacted over the last 2 years or so, but never got the opportunity to meet each other. So it's really a great opportunity for us to get together. And I'm really grateful to you for taking out time from your busy schedule on a weekday and joining us for this discussion, which is brought to you by ETCIO in association with Mongodb and Google Cloud. Coming to the topic of our discussion, which is modernizing your data platform for the new age applications, I want to start by saying that if you really look at these 2.5 years, we have seen the digital transformation being undertaken by organizations accelerating by leaps and bounds. And we have heard many times over these last 2 years that we have seen 4 to 5 years of transformation happen within 2 to 3 months, or rather weeks in some cases. And this has been a big lesson for organizations, even those who were sitting on the edge and were thinking whether they should take the plunge or not. And those who were already ahead in their digital transformation journey they actually saw the benefits coming from those early decisions. Now, one thing that we have seen common across all the transformation journeys that have taken place over the last few years is that it has also led to a lot of data being generated. And so there was this saying that every organization tomorrow is going to be a technology organization, and taking it a step forward, every organization going forward is going to be a data organization, because it will really define the success, or rather the competitive edge for most organizations. And when we say that data is the new oil, it essentially means that all the critical aspects, whether it is enabling a good customer experience, managing user expectations, generating new revenue avenues, generating new business opportunities, it all lies in the ability to leverage that data optimally. And the organizations that are able to do it are the ones that are going to be successful going forward. And especially when it comes to optimization of new age applications, they are going to be dependent on data. And when we are talking of data, we are talking of data platforms that need not only be able to process and store data, but also being able to keep up with the wide diversity of data. And here we are talking of data coming from different sources. We have data which is, which may be coming, one set of data could be coming from the social media, one set of data could be coming from the ERP. And of course, there are today multiple such sources of data. Now, the data platform, and then of course, you have the different people within your organization accessing this data, and each persona within the organization who's accessing this data has different needs and different requirements as far as leveraging the data is concerned. Now, what all this means is the need for a robust, really tenacious data platform, or rather a modern data platform that can leverage data most optimally and in real time. And today we are going to be talking of how some of the new age applications require modernizing your data platform. And in joining me in today's discussion are Jatin Gupta, Regional Director at Mongodb. Welcome, Jatin.
Thank you.
And Naren Kachru, Sales Lead, Digital Natives for Corporate Business at Google Cloud. Welcome, Naren.
Thank you.
So before we get the discussion rolling, Jatin, you want to add a few comments from your side in setting the context for the discussion.
Sure. Thanks, Shipra, and a very warm welcome to the fellow panelists here. My name is Jatin Gupta, and I'm the Regional Director for Mongodb India. I lead the digital native and high-tech vertical business for the India region. So my team takes care of the key customers for the India. A brief overview on MongoDB before I get into the topic. So MongoDB, those who don't know, the M in the mean or the MERN stack, which is commonly followed in the full stack development, stands for MongoDB there. MongoDB was founded in 2007, and we started as a database. And over the years, we have evolved into a modern data platform. So Shipra made a couple of great points that how the transformation, which was expected to happen in 2 to 3 years, now it is expected to take place in a matter of few months there. And that creates a lot of challenges there. The biggest challenge is that how do you keep pace with the market when it comes to the transformation there? And this is where the MongoDB New Age Data Platform helps the developers to build the new applications at a very fast pace. And at the same time, it creates a developer productivity to make sure that your developers are not focusing just on keeping the lights on, but their core time is spent on building and innovating the new age applications there. This is something about MongoDB. I'll probably brief about MongoDB later as part of today's discussion there. So Shipra made a great point there that data is something which is a core of any application there. While it is the biggest enabler for the organizations to make use of the data, but at the same time, it's the biggest blocker as well. The reason it's the biggest blocker is that the data exists in silos. Today, any application would have 10 to 12 streams of data coming in, and at the same time, it would be consumed by different stakeholders, both internally and externally there. And that creates a lot of challenges there for the developers there. So this is where the organizations need a robust data platform, which at the same time helps you to streamline the architecture, but at the same time helps your developers that they don't have to look out for different technologies while building different functionalities in the application. They are able to work on one powerful platform and make sure that they are able to develop those applications at a faster pace. Needless to say, the MongoDB data platform is a fully managed service which is powered by the underlying cloud provider. And this is where we have a great strategic partnership with Google Cloud. And anyone who wants to leverage the MongoDB data platform need to just go onto the console and can leverage the various services offered by MongoDB over the underlying cloud provider, which is GCP in this case. So this is something which I wanted to talk to start the conversation.
Thanks, Jatin. So very important point that you raised was while we have been speaking about data being an enabler, it can also become a roadblock if not leveraged in the right manner. And all of you here are new age companies, and you all are developing new age applications in your own respective industries. And it will be great to hear from all of you in terms of what can be the role of a modern data platform, especially empowered by cloud. So, Shivi, if I can start the discussion from the right side. And when both me and Jatin, we spoke about this accelerating digital transformation, and it has also put a lot of pressure, on IT leaders, and they're turning to modern applications to accelerate their digital transformation initiatives to support business growth. So what role can data play in the digital transformation journey? If you can talk specifically from the context of your organization.
Thank you, Shipra. Hi, everyone. Good evening. So our organization is fairly offline first. We have retail footprints across India. So we have close to 103 stores. Pan-India, serving consumers. Data is very, very critical for us because we are into healthcare. And from healthcare perspective, people want to know about their eye health specifically. And not many platforms or not many organizations capture eye health data of consumers. And it is very easy to capture the data at the back end, but not giving access to the consumers is something very different. So we haven't seen any organization which can provide that kind of data. So initially we had issues with inventory-led data versus consumers' healthcare data. How can we leverage that, and how can we build products? When I say products, I'm talking about eyeglasses, I'm talking about optical products, which are more suited towards our consumers. And we have struggled in years, across years, that we are not able to get better products to the consumers as per their need. Because we had multiple platforms, so we were doing a separate ERP at the back end for supply chain. We were doing a separate POS at the front end in order to capture the customer data, and then we were reconciling everything. And it was not very efficient process. So we are still building on it. But I think as what you rightly said, Shipra, I think there has to be a platform which can blend both things together, and it has to be obviously it has to be more efficient in order to get us accurate results, in order to build the business more efficiently and towards consumers' preferences. When we service our consumers, especially from eyeglasses or eye health perspective, we want to know, as a business owner, I want to know that my consumer, how has his eye health changed over a period of, let's say, 5 years, and what kind of products have we given to him or her, and whether they are of good quality or good usage patterns, etc. So I think from business perspective, I'm telling you on ground reality that we want some platform to give us insights, to give us better possibility of data mining, so that we know that we are going in a right direction or a wrong direction.
Right, right. So one is that you have a platform where you have all your data in one place, and then you are able to leverage it in terms of running analytics and get better insights into your consumers. Thanks a lot, Ravi. Also, if like all of you could just give a brief introduction about yourself and your organization. So Ravi, the same question for you. You know, what role can data play in the digital transformation journey of your organization, and how are you leveraging data within your company?
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Ravi. I am VP of Engineering at PropCap. PropCap is a fintech which operates in the SME space, and we are currently doing lending as well as payments for those set of businesses. So for us, we already have been digital first, so digital transformation was not a challenge for us. We started as a digital first company, and but over the years, the core focus was on business, and the data was not getting that much attention that it deserves, right? So, but now we started facing a challenge where we were not sure what kind of customers are staying with us, what kind of customers are moving on. So recently, only like in the last 6 months, we have kind of building our data strategy and building the data warehouses. That's when data really helped us to gain insight into what kind of. So one major insight was that customers who are sticking with us are taking more loans. But if the customer leave in very first month, they just go, they don't come back. So then the focus starting to go on to the keeping the customers with us rather than acquiring the new ones. So that's how one insight helped us to change the whole outlook of how we track our customers and how we engage with our customers. So digital transformation is something in respect to digital transformation. If you have already a lot of data, I think digital transformation journey becomes easy because that data can give you insights on what kind of features your customer are using more, what are the customer preferences. Then you can build a better roadmap using that, leveraging that data, and that roadmap will probably be successful as well because you have used it, built it using the data.
Thanks. So, if you can introduce yourself. Also, like what we heard from the first two panelists was there's a lot of focus on how you can leverage data to improve the customer experience through a more data-driven insights and personalized experiences. So, how are you in your organization? How are you looking at data to improve timelines and productivity, especially from the point of view of improving customer experience?
Okay, so anyways, hi everyone. I'm Vinay from Charios. I'm working as a director of technology. So I think I'd like to just preface it with how we are already using data
Sure,
at
definitely.
Charios. So I mean, it was probably not data first at our inception, probably 2011, but starting from 2016 onwards, roughly, it was a lot of data intensive. Decisions were being made actually, and I would say it's almost from a top-down approach from the founders that their decision making is always based on data. So that trickles down onto the the development and the needs of the business. So at least I would say our primary sales projections and sales drivers are data driven. That now converts into the inventory needs of the cafes and our stores actually. That again trickles down to the need of the supply chain and the procurement aspects from the vendor. So all these things is data driven. So again, I think coming back to your question specifically, so can you please
from the customer experience perspective,
Yes, so-
when it look at improving the timelines, because time is of the essence. You
Yes,
have to be
yes.
fast, and of course you have also, your company has expanded rapidly in these years.
Yes,
So
yes.
that also means a lot of data that you have accumulated around customer
So,
experience.
for us, the customer experience is also one of the key part. I mean, in fact, we have something known as a customer one view at our cafes, POS machines, and that itself is taken with a lot of information about the customer's historic behavior, and all that is actually shown in a very convenient way for the the basically the barista or the cafe boy, and so I mean that itself is one of the important thing, as well as the same data of the customer behavior and his journey is actually we use that for the driving our marketing strategies actually. So and then coming to the service time, at least for us, the productivity means as the service time of the barista boy. So we are in the process currently to optimize that. In fact, because it all depends, and the problem is primarily during the crunch period of high traffic, high volume during the evenings actually. So it's not a problem during the mornings and a low traffic time, but during the high traffic times, the service time is very critical. We are working on that, and I think we need to probably collect more data and in that aspect. So at least that's where we are.
Definitely. Thanks for giving that view of how you are leveraging data-driven insights. Yeah, sure. Please.
Yeah. Vinay, thanks for sharing your insights, that how you are leveraging the insights from the data to improve the customer experience there. But I believe that FMB is something which is a very competitive space at this point of time. I see that you're growing at a very fast pace there. So insights is one thing. So basis the insights, you try to take a decision and then bring and add more features to your current application there. So how is your journey of building new features and applications as part of the existing core application that you have? Are you able to keep pace with the market and leverage your platform to bring new and new features to the market at a faster pace there?
I would think we are doing that. I mean, at least probably we are having more targets, but we are able to do that at least for our the targets currently. So I mean, I'd like to expand that a bit later.
Sure. Okay.
Sure, we can catch up on more details offline. So Nikunj, in your case, how do you see data can help improve customer experience through more data-driven insights and personalized experiences? If you can share some examples if there are from your organization.
So I'm Nikunj. I'm the CTO at Checkbook. We are in the fintech segment, right? So we have different products. We have lending, we have current account, we have insurances, right? Data is a key metrics for us, right? I mean, all our KPIs are dependent on it, right? So whatever decisions we make, we are already using data to do that in our day-to-day activities, right? I mean, we cannot have a high level of NPAs for instance, right? So I mean, so even to make a decision whether to lend or not, we use data. I mean, we do B2B lending, right? So we have currently we use the credit scores, we use the purchase history of the vendors, etc., etc. Right? I mean, we depend on the other factors as well, right? So our model is still in progress, and data would help us arrive at that decision faster, right? So because I mean, still we are a work in progress, especially in this particular area, right? I mean, making decisions, building our models, etc., and how we can cross-sell our products, right? I mean, because I mean, it's a very competitive space, right? I mean, if we don't offer loan, say we don't close that loan in a particular space of time, right? Somebody else is going to do that, right? So that's where we have already generated quite a bit of data, right? And we are using that to leverage, I mean, to see where our particular users have, they have stopped. I mean, there's a churn there, right? We are trying to identify and close that gaps there, right? So in that way, it's actually very helpful for us, and we are actually looking to build more on it.
Okay. So before we move further, Naren, I want to bring you into the conversation, and you heard four of them, and how, of course, speed is of the essence. They all have to be fast, and and also one thing that has come out very clearly is that being able to leverage that data in the best possible manner to derive insights, meaningful insights out of the data. So these are some of the requirements that, or rather, how they are looking at leveraging data. So in that context, why do you think a cloud-first data strategy would be most suitable for organizations going forward?
Thanks. First of all, there are very few meetings where you don't have to find where the mute button and unmute button is. So I think this is a welcome change. I'd like to thank PCI or Mongodb for at least getting us into a meeting where we are not hunting for mute button or shouting, "Can you hear me?"
Unless you intentionally want to.
Unless you intentionally want to. But on a lighter side, first of all, thanks to all the panelists for coming in. I'm a big fan of Chairos, by the way. I'm a huge fanboy ever since 2012 when I experienced Chairos first time. We set up a group, my ex-company's meeting, and that's how I got introduced to Chairos. So well done. Appreciate what you said. Let me start by making a few points. One is that there will be these times in history where things will radically change, right? I think COVID, and you mentioned that COVID is one of those times. And when we say that things will radically change, which means that however we were doing the things in the past will feel like those were done a long time ago that way, right? You can see communication on how we communicate with each other, how we travel, etc. Right? Those are sudden transformations that will happen, and they'll be all pervasive. And if you look at cloud, and all the companies here, most of you are digital native startups who have probably done a cloud first approach in your lives. Cloud, also is going through an era of transformation. So while cloud first will remain pertinent, but I think we also have to understand what is happening on the cloud world itself, right? And if we look today, there are, I would say, in the history of cloud, three major sort of bucket events that happened. One is, back in time from when I am, and because of my receded hairstyle, you will know that I've been around a while. So there was this VM era, right? The era of going from dedicated hardware to virtual machines, which was the first era of sort of transformation. After that, people never thought that they will have to actually physically procure a machine. They'll get a VM because they have a VMware stack on it, and they'll just provision it virtually. They don't need a physical asset. Then was the time of what I call infrastructure cloud, right? Which is what has been since 2006, 2007, an all-pervasive cloud environment, right? It's very difficult for people, new age companies now, to even fathom that they have to buy hardware. It's available on the console, click, and there you are. But I think the third phase, which is happening right now, is the era of transformation cloud. And if I sort of, distill what transformation cloud is, it's basically taking a data first approach and applying it at all levels within cloud, right? So making data a cloud first citizen versus making infrastructure a cloud first citizen, right? So I think that's where we are in our age today. I'm not going to preach to the people in this room why cloud. I think that would be unfair. But I think what I want to leave the message with is the ability to think data first in the context of cloud now is important, because cloud itself is undergoing a transformative change. The new age applications will not be built because somebody has infrastructures and VM and storage to offer. It will be built because you are able to take data and make that data meaningful through the platform itself without having to do a lot of engineering stuff on top of it. And that's where I think, since I get paid by Google Cloud, I have to say this, and I think that's where Google Cloud shines, right? I'd be failing in my duty not to mention that. And we are a data company. I mean, our origins are seeded in using data to surface experiences. And we have taken that 20 years, 2 decades worth of experience on data and surfaced our data cloud. Now, we are not doing that alone. We are doing that in partnership with various partners, including MongoDB, which is, I think, our top partner in this space. They have won the Partner of the Year award 3 times, I think, in a row now with us. So I think our relationship is rock solid. So we are not doing this alone. We are doing this in conjunction with partners. We are also doing this in conjunction with the learnings that we are taking from our ads teams. We are also well aware that that landscape is also going to undergo a change with all the cookies and everything else, First party data is going to be more relevant now than ever before. You will have to trust, in a cookieless world or cookie zero world, you will have to trust first party data to make personalization decisions. So if I walk into a Chayo's cafe, you can't trust third party data now to service me. You'll have to know me because I have visited your store before. Not on what I do on Facebook or what searches I have done on Google, etc. So I think that's where, a transformation cloud is, I think a data first cloud is going to be that pivotal moment and that transformative moment of where the cloud is headed in this journey. So I don't know if I answered the question, but
you did,
sorry,
Naren.
long.
Thanks for that context and talking about the data first cloud. That's interesting how you spoke about the transition and taking what Naren said, taking it forward, Shivam. If you could elaborate a little bit more in terms of how do you see data can be used to foster better efficiencies in the cloud and in creating new age applications? Do you think cloud can be a big enabler when it comes to leveraging data better and especially when it comes to creating new age applications?
Yeah, thanks Shipra for the question. So I'm Shivam. I head the technology for Goals 101 Data Solutions, which is essentially a fintech-based AI-based fintech company. We work primarily with banks and various data processors to help them make sense of their data. We do a lot of analytics on the transaction behavior of a customer, primarily basis their spend on a credit card or a debit card and various other ways that the customer can spend. And then in parallel, we also work with various brands and we create a platform where both the bank and the brand can come together and work towards improving the customer experience, both at the bank side as well as at the brand side, and obviously generate new sources of income for everybody, including the customer along the way by helping them save more. So that's essentially what we do. Create a win-win scenario via the platform that we have, and obviously in the way process a lot of data, right? So when you talk about customer experience, primarily if you talk about from a B2C perspective or a B2B2C perspective, where the end consumers are involved, they are the users of your your application or your product, essentially what they need something which is real time, which is ever changing, which is very easy to use, highly personalized, right? So let's say Nikunj looking at a screen, seeing some data versus I looking at a screen has to be very, very different depending on what our interests are, what what our various characteristics are, right? It has to be very fast, very accurate. It has to be scalable, obviously, right? And it has to be very, very accessible, right? Now, keeping all of these various factors in mind and dealing with various streams of complex data, which would not have a certain, I would say, same structure. They would have very different structures. You would have to marry various set of data to be able to produce the output that you want your customers to see. That becomes very, very challenging in a second phase, like Jatin mentioned, right? In the second phase of the cloud development, where there was in the first phase there were VMs, in the second phase there was infrastructure. But if you have to do a lot of engineering on top of everything else, then that becomes your primary focus, and not the data that should ideally be, right? So we already are in that phase now, in as far as the cloud development is concerned, like you rightly pointed out. We are already in that phase where data is taking the center stage. Data is becoming the centralized entity, and everything else is revolving around the data, right? You do not need to have a specific set of expertise to be able to do something with your data, or you do not need to have a specific set of infrastructure to be able to do something with your data. You should know your data. You should know what you want to do with your data, and then you can completely rely on your cloud provider, Google Cloud, for example, to be able to provide you with the required infrastructure as well as tools and data platforms like MongoDB to be able to handle that scalability issue that you have when you deal with a large set of data. So I think with the modern age, new age applications, cloud is the only way to go forward. I don't think, at least I can ever think to go back to the old age era of thinking about physical machines or even a VM based setup to be able to do what we can do on a cloud with that set of, I would say, scalability, that set of speed, and that set of easiness as compared to what we used to do a few years back.
Right. So availability, scalability, speed are key, and that's what makes cloud a feasible option. Nikhil, what is your take on this? Also, if you could introduce yourself and.
All right. So for everyone, I'm Raj, and I head the compliance for Goals 101. So I'm with Shubham. We work in the same organization, Goals 101, and I head the compliance. And since Goals 101 is into the business of fintech, again, we have got several countries where we operate, within Asia as well as the UAE. Now, if you look at what Shubham just said, I'm just going to add a little bit of it, which will help make it more meaningful for all of us. That what we have been thinking about data platforms so far in our planning and execution, it has always stood at the back, and it has always been more on volume side. Now, with the trend that we have got in the last 2 years, where majority of the organizations have moved to digital platform, right? From a traditional way of operation of having servers in our environment, etc. The last 2 years have been a serious scenario where a lot of organizations have moved to digital platform. Now, I'll go to the basics, saying that every organization and the data platform has to marry the business objectives, right? And if I look at it from a practical standpoint, we shall ensure, and every organization shall ensure that the planning around data platform has to be very, very detailed, and looking at their next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, and 4 years planning. The reason why I'm saying so is, and this is the challenge that we have faced. Say, for example, we adopted for a cloud service provider here in India, right? We went back to UAE, and that cloud service provider is not there in UAE, right? We have built the entire platform on a cloud, which does not have the global presence. You understand? Tomorrow, my business gets a business in, say, X country in, say, Europe. Now, the service provider with which I have tested my platform is not there, and I have to move to a fresh service provider, say Google, right? Now, the DB that I have chosen, the database platform that I have chosen here, may not ideally work same or efficiently right there on that platform, right? So this is the time when we are planning for data platform, it is very relative to the organization, and we have to be very careful in terms of choosing the data platform. And why I'm saying so is that if your data platform has even 10% of a mismatch in terms of the output that your product does, then in that case you will be in a serious pain. The business is going to be in serious pain. So that's what my take is, that the scalability has to be there. Then the adaptation to any service cloud provider or other maximum service cloud providers shall be there in choosing the data platform.
Absolutely right. And a very important point that you raised about the data platform. First of all, it needs to match with your business objectives, and interoperability, scalability, and so these are all aspects that a data platform should have. And Jatin, I will come to you briefly on that. I'll just quickly cover one or two more questions, and then probably you can also answer that.
Yeah.
So we are talking about the different aspects of the data strategy, and why modernizing the data platform is the need of the hour. So if you can tell us a little bit more about your data strategy and what role can data play, or rather it is playing in your organization.
Correct.
You can tell us more about your organization.
So my name is Akshay. I'm the Director Technology in Medley. So I think what we have realized during last couple of years is that data was with us, but the biggest challenge while we started talking about cloud migration was consolidating all the data which is structured and unstructured. So which was a very, very big challenge for us. And frankly speaking, I realized that structured data was only X percentile, and majority of it was unstructured. And while we say that unstructured data is not that important, but while we do this cloud migration strategies, we realize that till the time we have not really consolidated our data from various touch points, it will be very difficult to do a end-to-end digitalization for the whole organization rather than going into silos. So I think that is one thing which we took, and we took help of some consultants to do that work for us. Second thing, while this cloud migration was happening, what we also did was we involved certain key stakeholders from different departments so that there is a responsibility which is happening rather than the pure IT work. Because end of the day, we tell all our team members that we have to stop doing the policing job, right? So we have to be more like a catalyst to this whole change which is happening. So no doubt, I think nobody in this room is going to doubt that cloud is not what is required. In fact, cloud is here, right? We used to say that cloud is coming, but that cloud is here. So I think it's a question of while we are doing all these strategies, what is important is obviously compliance is one part of it. Scalability is very, very important. Third thing, which we also did, is a proper vendor selection criteria, which has to be taken, because it is easy to migrate to cloud, but then it is not that easy to move between different cloud service providers, CSPs. So what is important is that your consultant, your CSP, your service providers have to be properly chosen with a clear-cut strategy in mind as to what is your expectation, right? And then obviously we are not looking at only a single service provider. We believe in multi-cloud strategy, because there could be chances that for one of the services you have to go on a pure SaaS model, right? And it is not an in-house software. So there you have to work in a multi-cloud strategy. So that's what.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very important. The ability to manage not just structured but also unstructured data, and that is the key when it comes to a modern data platform. So moving to the left side of the table, Mohammed, what is your take on coming back to cloud? Whether you go for a strategy of a single cloud vendor or a multi-cloud vendor, but how do you think data can be used to foster better efficiencies in the cloud and in creating new age, especially when it comes to creating new age applications? How can cloud be an enabler for your data strategy?
Hi, I'm Mohammed Swed, and I'm representing FairScent here, and I'm working as the engineering head in the FairScent. For us, data is all about the growth. because without data we cannot think about the growth and all this in the kind of data right now we are having. We are in the peer-to-peer loan lending company, so we need to understand the customer, what a behavior and the lender pattern, because when we are saying that lender, we need to find what exactly, how depth is the lender pocket. So these things come with the lender, with the data, and we need to run the AI models and all these things to find that which one is the right lender for this kind of industry, especially for the P2P, because P2P is completely a new, it's not a new industry, but it's a 8-year-old industry. And we are the first one in India who got the RBI license in the P2P lending. So we know that in the customer or the borrower side, for us, finding each and every detail of the borrower, because if we don't read the borrower details and all these things, we cannot survive, because the NPA will be go higher. And if the NPA will be higher, then the growth will be stopped. And we need to balance the lender and the borrower amount also, because at the end we need to return to the lender some interest and all these things. So considering all these facts, without data, we cannot think about the growth. And in terms of the cloud is the only way to move forward nowadays in India. Even across the globe, it's not about the India, across the globe. And the platform, you asked that is a multi-platform and all these things, the multi-cloud and all these things. Yes, that is the solution, because we need to manage the one system as well as the disaster mechanism and all these things. To run the unstructured data, sometimes different vendors play a major role kind of thing. So finding all the alternate solution and avoiding the downtime and all these things, having a multiple cloud is the only solution, I think. And the kind of system we are running in the data is especially playing with the data in AI kind of thing, to read the user behavior exactly. Because in our case, fraud and all these things, to check the fraud, you have a maximum data of the borrower or the lender to avoid the fraud and all these things. Without that, we cannot survive. So getting all the data, especially Aadhaar, PAN, bank statement, reading those kind of data, what exactly, how is the bank statement is running from last 6 months, what exactly is the FOIR of that person. So we need to run the OCR and all these things. OCR is all about the AI and all these things. So we capture all this data and read every pattern of the borrower and finding that where he is going to default. Finding a defaulter is another challenge. Without data, we cannot find the defaulter and all these things. So for us, data is the oil for our growth and all these things.
Right. Thank you so much, Mohammed. And I've seen a lot of use cases around AI and analytics I'm hearing today. So before I move further in the discussion, Jatin, I want to ask you, in terms of listening to the panelists till now and the kind of use cases that they're talking about, how they want to leverage data, and also some of the challenges they've spoken about in terms of data silos or in terms of managing both structured and unstructured data. And when it comes to new age applications, the kind of use cases that they're looking at, why do you think a modern data platform that not only stores and processes the data, but also, adapts faster with the diversity of the data is important? But before that, what, according to you, is a modern data platform, and why is it a need today?
Sure. Thanks, Shipra. I think you raised a very important point there, that gone are the days when the data platform was just needed to process and store data. What I could gather as a common theme by the fellow panelists there is that there are some real world problems that exist as on today. When we are building new age applications there are problems related to getting the insights from the huge amount of data that is there, stored into different systems there. We have to analyze the first party data, and we have to analyze it real time to get the insights and then build on that customer experience there. Scalability is again an issue. I think we have panelists from the fintech space who are running major transactions there. How do they scale? Scalability becomes a big issue there. There are issues related to multiple streams of data which are getting ingested in then these are processed, and then it has to make sense to be fed to the stakeholders, both the customers and the internal stakeholders there. And at the same time, the structured and the unstructured data, it becomes a key issue. Structured is something which has been addressed 40 years back by the relational world there, but unstructured data is something which becomes a key. How you manage the unstructured data or the semi-structured data there, and at the same time, the cloud provider availability across different regions there. I would say this is where, when you are building a new age application, all these are the real world problems that come into existence. And this is where a new age modern data platform, what I mean by the new age modern data platform is that it's not just a database there. It's a platform which would help your developers to build the applications at a very fast pace. And today's applications are not just limited to a basic CRM application. It has features related to search. That same application has to have a mobile version and a web version there. Then there is multiple streams of data coming in. You have terabytes of data, which you need to make sure that it's getting ingested into certain system where you can get the insights out of that data. Then you have to have a visualization or analytics out of it so that you can build the dashboards and the monitoring tools around it. And at the same time, you have to build some real-time streams there. Possibly have different data tiering strategy on hot data and cold data there. This is where a modern data platform comes in there, which helps and addresses your needs, not just at the database level, which just basically does the storing and processing of data, but gives you a larger platform for your developers, which helps and addresses multiple facets of the challenges which are faced to build a new age application.
Right. Thanks. So one thing is very clear. So Ayush, I want to come to you now. So while we can talk about what technology is there at the back end, what database, what data platform that you have, ultimately what matters to the business is it doesn't matter irrespective of what technology I have. I need to be able to am I able to meet my business objectives. And today it is an experience economy, and it's all about giving that wow experience to the customer. So in that context, how can a strong data strategy be the differentiator, and how are you looking at a strong data strategy to bring that differentiation in your customer experience? Because ultimately, if that need is what translates into your data platform, that goes back into your data platform.
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Ayush. I'm one of the founders of Kosh, which is the first digital microfinance company in India. And we basically provide group loans to blue collar workers. So these are 3 or more people basically come together on the app and they borrow together as a group. So data is very important for us because we need to be able to understand what are the dynamics within the group, right? So the personalization aspect is definitely important. But I think one of the key things, so we're relatively a young company, right? So not so long ago, we had 0 users. And today we have, over 100,000 users, right? So one thing that is, sort of stayed the same is how we basically handle data. And I think cloud was a very important component in, scaling effortlessly, right? So I think that is one of the things that cloud has really allowed us to do is lower the barriers for innovation, right? So I think that is the real, advantage for us. So more than the customer experience, I think it's basically running experiments is easier than ever, right? So I think that is why, we believe that the future of computing is going to be cloud, right? And I think that is the real value that we derive from cloud as a young company, right? Like once we're still, figuring out a lot of things, some of them will work, some of them don't, right? So we don't necessarily have to go down the rabbit hole of investing in things that we realize, sooner rather than later that don't work. So I think it has really accelerated the, process of iterating on the product. And I think that is how we, and all of these decisions are data driven, right? So we need to measure the smallest things because fundamentally our business does not have a lot of margins, right? So we need to be able to run a very tight ship. And I think, data plays a really important role in this, in running the way we do.
So essentially, your data strategy enabled by cloud, it has helped in innovating faster. So, and we all talk about innovate fast and fail fast. And I think that is where cloud has played an important role. If you could introduce yourself and also talk about your data journey, and also in terms of how you're looking at a data strategy to enable that best-in-class customer experience, especially in the post-pandemic world today.
Hi, I am Ankit. I am co-founder for Ucom. It's a B2B e-commerce platform focused on fashion. So, as Shipra, you asked, how data is helping me understand what sort of best customer experience I can give. So, fashion historically been a very subjective industry. Something works, something don't. There was a lack of predictability where what sort of fashion would work, and how data has helped in improving that customer experience for brands, in my case, where I can with confidence tell them that there is a predictability that this style will become a bestseller. You can have broken down all your garments or your apparel or any fashion product into multiple attributes, and you can tell them that this is the attribute that would work, and these are the combination of attributes that would work. And hence that predictability that you can give, combined with the first party data that you will get from different user customer interactions, that is what is a boon that data gives in the e-commerce or fashion business here, where you give them that predictability which was not there earlier. And that too, given that we are in a post the COVID era, where most of the things are online first, and as Ayush was also mentioning, it's more of an iterative business that every consumer is following. You give them that predictability that you actually try fast, fail fast, and iterate on that. And all those decisions are now built on data.
Very, very interesting example that you gave about how fashion, which is something which is very subjective, how you are trying to bring predictability into an area like this using data. Thank you so much. Again, if you can introduce yourself, and also, what is your take on what is your data journey been like, and how are you leveraging it to better offer better customer experiences, improve timelines, improve productivity?
Sure. So I am Pawan. I'm the co-founder of Fashion Lab. We are a B2B marketplace for manufacturing.
Right.
So customers are fashion brands who work with manufacturers on our platform. These manufacturers are mostly small manufacturers. So the challenge is always been that these small manufacturers are unreliable, they don't have any visibility, and most of the large manufacturers would use some solution like SAP, Oracle, etc. But the small manufacturers never get a solution which is cheap enough for them to be able to use without a full-blown implementation. So that's where we use a easy-to-use mobile and tablet solution to capture right data from the shop floor, so whether it is quality data, production data, etc. All of these data that is captured effectively results in. So all of these data captured together effectively gives real-time insights to the manufacturers in terms of how the factory is working, what are the quality issues like on assembly line 1, assembly line 2, and also gives them the data in terms of what is their capability like, what they are good at, what they are not good at. And I think we've been able to unlock millions of data points for every factory, which earlier was never there. And what this means is that the throughput is increasing. So it's a real life impact. Like the throughput is increasing, your quality rejections are decreasing, you're able to get better top line and better bottom line both at the same time. And I think this has been our strategy, using data to really help these small, medium factories run in a much more efficient manner, something like the best factories of the world, how they are able to do it using the more expensive solution. And I think like once we use such solution, I think a simpler example to understand would be something like how a delivery ecosystem has used GPS as a data point to actually be able to deliver much better results for the customers. Similarly, we use our app is sort of like a GPS inside the factories, but most importantly, it gives real-time analytics into what needs to be done to, let's say, improve whatever the factories. One example is like we give insights like yesterday you had a defect rate of 10% because And the major reason for that was oil stains. And that too in line number 2 and line number 4. Like this is the level of insights that we are able to now give because of the data that we capture from the shop floors.
Right. So while we have heard a lot about the B2C e-commerce and B2C fashion, I think this is a great example of a B2B industry example. Thank you so much. So Naren, when we heard of all these examples and of how customer experience is today at the forefront of any initiative being undertaken by organizations, but this customer experience, if we work backwards at all, and the data points that everyone has been talking about, it all moves back into that data platform. And while I said that for the businesses, it doesn't matter what technology you use at the back end, for them, being able to deliver that customer experience is important. But of course, that technology has to enable that. So can you tell us a little bit more about how has MongoDB and Google Cloud partnership helped customers leverage AI and automation in order to improve their consumer experiences?
Yeah, sure. Before I go there, I just want to say that, for the two retail people in the room, thank you for being in the room. Retail is a very favorite, it's a very pertinent segment for Google Cloud. Not that others are not, but it's one area where we actually shine. I think a lot of reason for that is the other cloud is also a retailer, so not a lot of retailers want to work with the other cloud provider. I don't want to name. It's my ex-employer as well, so I'll stay away. I'll stay clear of the names, but we are doing a lot of work there. But coming back to your question, Shipra, about user experiences. User experiences are driven fundamentally by the quality of data that you have about the user to surface that experience back to the user. And I think where a lot of time is spent today is trying to see how you can put engineering effort on the underlying data itself to make it relevant, right? I think the work that we are doing in Google Cloud, in part jointly with MongoDB, is to free your developers and your data scientists from, I would call it undifferentiated heavy lifting of trying to over-engineer or re-engineer a lot of things, a lot of this work, so that better insights can be surfaced and user experiences can become better. So first point that I wanted to say, and I'll come to the tech piece of it in a second, but the first point that I wanted to mention is slow is the new outage, right? If you're slow, it's worse than actually being down, because if you're actually down, you can say I'm down and 404 not found or whatever, right? But where we are focused hugely, and the engineering efforts that MongoDB and Google Cloud have done jointly, is making sure that this platform is extremely fast. The attention span of your new age user on your app or on your website is so small that even a few millisecond worth of lag is going to drive that user away from the experience. So that's where I think our partnership has shined. That's where I think a lot of the engineering that has gone behind Google Cloud in the way we have developed our cloud platform, which is different from other clouds, from a network infrastructure standpoint. For example, our network is global. We have our own network that connects all our regions together, back to your point, right? Data localization, strategy to stay within the confines of your network and not having to hop onto other networks. For example, having VPCs, for those of you who are familiar with networking technology, having virtual private clouds that span across regions, which is not available with other clouds. I think that's where a significant part of our engineering effort has gone. The other significant part of our engineering effort, in addition to, and I'll let Jatin talk about MongoDB, has gone to the components that you will use post your processing of information from MongoDB. So as you build your data platform and you build your data strategy on database technologies, on data platforms like MongoDB, you then want to find the right platform for building your customer data platform, or what we now call marketing analytics platforms, right? So the work that we have done, for example, with BigQuery, I'm sure most of you in some way or form have used that tech. The ability for it to be a totally serverless data warehouse platform which scales infinitely, used at Google scale of 1 billion users plus applications that run analytics on top of BigQuery is just phenomenal. And the fact also, back to your question, is driving intelligence from it. BigQuery, for example, today has built-in ML models. So as you start pushing data into BigQuery, the ML models will by themselves run AutoML, will automatically run on the data that you have persisted onto BigQuery to give you meaningful insights without having to spend a lot of your cycles in trying to decipher which models, which algorithms, how to fine tune your machine learning models and stuff like that. So I think, that's the kind of work that we are attempting to do. We have also done a few acquisitions in this space. The one being, on the farther end of the spectrum being Looker, which is our BI tool. Now we have acquired that. And the reason, again, we acquired Looker was we truly believe that the ability to democratize data as well is extremely important. Data today is still, I have some statistics around it, but we believe that only 24% of businesses, and within those 24%, a very, very small single digit number actually has access to data, right? So that is a challenge that we are trying to solve, to see how we can democratize data, give data in the hands of everybody in that organization to make sense of it, all the developers, all the product guys, all the analysts, all the strategy people in that organization, and not be siloed to a particular department or a particular group. So that's kind of the work that we are doing, and that's how we are surfacing it. Those of you who have apps on the App Store and use Firebase already as or Flutter plus Firebase already as your strategy, the integration is seamless. We have engineered MongoDB, we have engineered BigQuery, we have engineered our entire stack natively to talk to your app ecosystem. So that's where you're surfacing your experiences. That's also where you're capturing insights into where is the user dropping out, where is the churn happening, what's going on with that user interface. And so that's the power of that's the power of Google that we are trying to bring together, in addition to the work that we are doing jointly with our ads team on building the ads data hub on top of BigQuery as well.
Thanks, Naren. So Jatin, if you can add on to it in terms of the partnership, and also specifically how MongoDB can help organizations in their data-driven strategy, or rather enable the data-driven strategy of organizations.
Sure. Thank you, sir. So I was, before I answer your question there, Shipra, so I was meeting a few customers in the fintech space last week. And one of the CTO told us that the number of transactions that Amazon process in 24 hours, they process that same number of transactions in 6-hour time window. So that's the capability of a data platform that it brings to the table when it comes to a scalability. So to answer your question now, Shipra, when we talk about building a data strategy, I think few of the panelists made a very relevant point that data platform always took a back seat there. But it's very important that the data strategy has to be in the forefront there. If the organizations have to adapt and bring the products and services to the market, which are in terms and in line with what the market expects there. So a couple of things that comes to my mind, I think 3 key pertinent points that when you're building your data strategy, I think the database essentially is the core of a database platform there. So it has to be a data platform which is very easy to use for the developers there. The database should have the capability to both process structured, unstructured data. It should have the capability to be very fast. I think Naren raised a very important point there, that slow is the new outage there. Even millisecond of slowness is something, and you are out of the business there. So it has to be very fast, it has to be easy, it has to be versatile at the same time. You should be able to, and at the same time, it has to be very intuitive for the developers to build the applications there. The second key aspect is that scalability and the availability part of it, along with something what Nikhil told us, talked about, that the compliance and the data localization is something which becomes again a key part of it, that it should be able to scale. So today, if you have 100 customers there, it should be able to scale to hundreds of thousands of customers with a matter of few clicks there. And at the same time, making sure that it's as robust when you had a few hundreds of customers there, while making sure that the data stays in the specific regions there. And the third key aspect is that it should be agnostic to the underlying infrastructure there. Whether you run on-prem or on cloud or private cloud there, your data strategy should be agnostic to that. So the last thing you would want is you go to a different geography and you don't have an access to a particular infrastructure or cloud provider there. So it has to be a key aspect of that data platform strategy there. So I think these are the three things, if any organization is building a data platform or a data strategy there, these are the three key pertinent points that an organization should consider.
Great, great. By the way, I love that phrase, slow is the new outage. So I think that is what it looks like going forward.
And developer is the new king.
Developer
so please enable your developers, give them the right tools, and let them not worry about underlying grunt work and undifferentiated heavy lifting is what I call it.
So I want to wrap up this conversation by quickly taking your view on one very important thing. While we all agree here that data is the new oil or the soil or whatever we might want to call it, and it is what is driving the business and the competitive edge. But what is the biggest challenge that you see in your organization when it comes to enabling a data-driven culture and leveraging data? So, if very quickly, if each one of you can talk about what, in your case, do you see as the biggest challenge?
I think very, very valid point. From building a small startup to a big organization, I think it percolates top to bottom unless from a founder's perspective or a top level management perspective, we are data driven, the teams will never be. We have suffered a lot. We have had people who don't understand data at all. They just keep talking about business is not happening on the ground, but why business is not happening, what are the key reasons towards at the back end or the front end, there is no data. So I think very, very important aspect to build culture around data, to always question why, what are the key reasons, specifically quantifying them, and qualitative and analysis proper on the basis of what has gone wrong and because of which data has not, because of which business has not performed. I think it has to be seriously fed up across the chain, and otherwise people won't learn to respect data. I think respect is missing for the data. That is very, very critical while building a business, and scale it up. And before scaling, I think that is my learning, personal learning. Before scaling, don't scale unless your teams and you are aligned properly. While visiting, when we sit in the meetings and when we say that last quarter-on-quarter growth is stalled and not grown due to some reason, or maybe the customers' escalations have increased to, let's say, 20%. What are the key specific KPIs which we didn't monitor specifically? So I think we should not go without data in any meeting room. That is my learning.
So I mean, data becomes the very essence of the organization, and for that, it has to be across the top, middle, and the bottom.
Yeah, it is a limb we should all have.
Okay, thank you so much, Ravi. What do you see as the biggest challenge in building a data-driven culture and leveraging data?
I think one is definitely, the Shivi highlighted, it should be driven from top to bottom. Second is that I think that the mindset is always to execute things faster. Whenever you plan for something, people don't actually plan. When they think of feature or a product, they get into the execution mode. Rather than that, they should first spend more time on planning and figuring out if there is a data, and if that data is backing up your idea, then only you should go into execution. I think the one reason I feel is everyone just goes around, just build this quickly and launch this quickly.
So skipping the planning phase can cause a challenge. Vinay,
Yeah, I think it'll be like a broken record, but I think top down is what is very key, and we've been doing that very successfully, I would believe. But otherwise, the other challenges probably is the multiple data sources, and which is both, again, I think several others mentioned, the structured, unstructured data and handling them. The strategy for handling that is always an afterthought, because at the pace at which we build things, these aren't considered at that point actually. So I think I'm still yet to probably hear a few things from the platform perspective, but it's design intensive, that you have to consider them, and it's not possible sometimes to do that. And the other thing is, from the developer point of view, sometimes again at the design level there are a lot of misses in terms of capturing the data at certain interaction points with the customers, or probably even the operational exchanges at the software level. So the capturing sometimes is missed. Again, we have to go back, and again all these are coming as an afterthought things. So at least that's my
right. So gaps in collecting the data
yes.
at source. Yeah. Nikunj, your challenge.
We are a data-driven company, but it's still at the top of it, right? Enforcing it with the bottom part of it, it's still a challenge, right? And we have to solve that to be scalable, right? Without being a data-driven completely, it's very difficult to be scalable. Because you have to follow your tags, you have to finish them on time, right? So that's a challenge for us. Yeah, but we are going there. We are trying to move.
Thanks. Sure.
So culture obviously is very important. Everybody in the organization has to think data first. Data has to become the central piece of everything else, and everything else should revolve around the data. That is obviously like what almost everybody reiterated. Apart from this, whenever you are thinking about doing anything with your data, how you are going to do it also is equally important as equally important as to understand why you are going to do it. Because if you do not know the why, and especially the person or the team who's going to work on that piece of data, if they do not understand why they are going to do what they are going to do, they will never be able to do the right justice to it. So I think understanding of the why is also equally important.
So why is as important as the what and the how?
Yes.
Shipra, so working with big organizations like IBM, Pearson for over 2 decades, and then coming to a fintech, which is a growing organization now, I have a different view to this. And the view is that data confidentiality or data accessibility, awareness has to be from bottom to the top, and that drives any organization. Now, this is from a confidential, so privacy standpoint of the data. Now, talking about compliance or availability of data, as what we heard that Mongodb has a faster rate of interaction with the end customer as compared to other platforms. I think this is one key areas that anybody would look out for, or any organization would look out for. And then, as we have always been talking about, the portability of the database to any other service provider is quite an important aspect that we have to take care of, right? So, in my opinion, a smart risk assessment before we actually choose the data platform is very important for us, right? And risk assessment ideally means not the availability risk assessment, but also the operational risk management in terms of data platform. That's quite important for any organization or a smart organization.
Thank you so much. I think that's a very important point that you have brought in, the confidentiality part of the data, and I think that is, and considering a lot of fintech organizations, and not just fintech, I think data protection, privacy, confidentiality, security is important for all organizations across sectors today. So what do you...
I think a very important point which I want to mention about the data strategy is the data first approach because all of us know that the culture eats strategy for a breakfast, right? So what is very important is that the data has to speak for itself as a value. If it is not happening, I think it will require a lot of efforts from all the functional heads to push it. So I think what is important is what sort of security strategies have been put in place while the data is accessing. So this is important, especially when you are working on a public cloud environment. How do you make sure that you have DLPs in place? When you talk about VPCs, do you really have the environment where people can work their applications very securely from a home environment, right? So I think what is important is both the back end and the front end have to really work very closely with each other. Also, the applications have to really speak for themselves. What I mean to say is that, for example, an HR guy who is accessing data which is for employee, as well as sales guy is accessing data which is for his applications, it has to be a cakewalk. Gone are the time when we make things very complicated. So I think it is very important for us to understand that it has to be as simple as just swiping a card. So how do you make sure that swiping is very, very simple for the user, but at the back end you have a lot of accountability, confidentiality, you have security in place. So I think what is important is while this whole process is happening, it has to ultimately add value to the user. I think that's important.
Absolutely, and this becomes even more important considering the way data is democratized now, and it's available. Its democratization within the organization, especially, has brought a lot of focus around confidentiality, privacy, and also who is able to access what data. And of course, this has to be seamless. And that has to be made possible by the data platform. Mohammed, your biggest challenge?
For the two key challenges, one is the integration, because we are a fintech company, we need to integrate each platform, and storing those things in the cloud itself a big challenge. And planning, as Jatin highlighted, that planning is always in a data, planning is always in the back. We do data planning and all these things in the last stage. We don't know, especially in the fintech, when you are collecting the PI information and all these things, we don't know, because we need to cater the borrower. We don't know what data need to be saved and what data need to be released it and put it in the log and all these things. But we store all the data and all these things, and encrypting those data itself a challenge to avoid misuse and all these things. These are the two key challenges which I am seeing in the fintech industry.
Thank you so much. Ayush, your challenge?
I think the major challenge is, is to be able to react quickly to changes in data. So as your growth explodes, right, your data explodes as well. So I think what the strategies that used to work maybe 6 months ago don't really work today. So so that's something that we struggle with today. So I think there are a lot of tools available. But it's, in some sense, we've sort of struggled to, use them appropriately, I guess. So that has been our challenge.
Thank you. Parikshit, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to building a data-driven culture and leveraging data?
I think it's a very important question. I think what needs to happen is, numeracy is a skill. Just like any other skill, this is also a skill. Unfortunately, in our school system, there's just like financial literacy is not taught, numeracy is also not taught. So as sort of, guardians or builders of data platforms, it's our job to also assimilate this skill across the organization. There's very basic stuff like when you're onboarding people, are you sort of having a training structure in place where you're talking about things like correlation, causation, what are the cognitive biases that because what ultimately you can have the best data platform in the world and present data to a person who doesn't understand how to react to it, because they are coming with a certain bias in their head. So if it's a salesperson who's thinking that credit is not doing their job, he's going to ask for a report that confirms that. That is a biased thought process in the beginning. So you have to develop certain training modules or what have you to develop that numeracy culture within the organization. Because unfortunately, it doesn't exist in the market. There is a few, even within data scientists, we find sometimes that even they don't have it. So I think if you look at it from a first principles approach, as just understanding this is a skill that's often spoken of but doesn't really exist, and you try to develop that skill, which is what we have done. We actually have physical training modules every week to talk about one cognitive bias or take one report and ask two people to debate it in the opposite side. Over time, that sort of helps building a data-driven culture that ultimately drives businesses.
Yeah, and in fact, data literacy could mean different things for different, like for a data scientist, it could mean totally different, and for a sales and marketing person, it could mean a totally different thing. So, adjusting your data literacy to different personas in the organization is critical. What do you see as the biggest challenge?
I think accessibility of data across different functions in an organization is quite important, and as you scale, it becomes more and more important, where functions start to work a bit in silos. When teams get bigger, you can get multiple insights from different functions, as a company does not run on one function in tandem. It runs on all the functions in tandem. So that is one thing that one challenge could be there, or there is a lot of scope of improvement where every function can share data in a digestible manner to different functions to help improve their functions.
Right, absolutely. And also one thing is that as the organization grows, is your data strategy aligned to that, to scale up with that growth? That is a challenge. What is your take?
I think we've already had a lot of takes here, but starting one more thing, I think one thing we struggle with is just getting really good tools where it is super easy to fiddle around with data, especially for a non-tech or let's say non-fit, non-data analyst person. Obviously, accessibility is first part of it, but I think the second part is just being able to, let's say, download the raw data, just being able to fiddle around with it without actually having too much, statistics knowledge, etc. is something, the other thing that we continue to still struggle with.
Right. Now, I think also with low code and no code, we're also seeing a lot of technologies now being accessible to the non-technology people within the organization. So thank you so much, everyone. I know it might look like I'm concluding this session with talking about the challenges, but the idea is to get the conversation started. I want to take this conversation now. Please continue to and feel free to interact with Naren and Jatin over cocktails and dinner. And before we wrap up, Jatin, any one key takeaway from you?
Yeah, I think the one key takeaway is something I would summarize that everyone talked about. I think the data platform strategy has to be the forefront for the new age applications. Considering the way the data is increasing, the volume, variety, and velocity of data, I think these are the three biggest challenges related to data that is at the forefront there. If you are able to address these three biggest challenges related to data and choose a data platform which is robust, can adapt to the market demands, and it at the same time, as Naren pointed out multiple times, can help your developers focus on the innovative part of the application rather than doing the work which is something that's keeping the lights on there. I think you would be able to build a vision for the future there. So I think this is something that any organization which is choosing a data platform should keep in mind.
Absolutely. Naren, one takeaway you want to leave everyone with?
I don't want to do a sales pitch, but again, it's in my job title. I can't help it. I heard a lot on the challenges part. I think a lot of outside of data accessibility, I think data privacy, security, compliance around data came out as a pertinent sort of theme. And I agree with you, Nikhil, 100% on what you said. My only takeaway is choose a data platform that is open. Choose a data platform that has proven through its credentials to be successful, that other large organizations in your field are using. Choose a data platform that allows you the flexibility tomorrow to move across platforms to contain your risk. Choose a data platform at the end, I would say, that's sustainable, that supports sustainability. That's a very important thing. As data grows, our carbon footprint with the data grows as well. I think a lot of people didn't think about that aspect of our world today. But more data needs more power to power that data, and with more power means we become less efficient. So choose a platform that's 100% carbon neutral, is sustainable, and keeps helping you on your data strategy, but also keeps the world a better place for future generations. So I'll end with that. I'm sure you understood which platform I'm talking about, so I will not get deeper into that.
I have a question. I mean, not a question, rather a recommendation. So we have been working across several data platforms, right? Never ever, in my at least view, a data platform service provider would have come back and said that this is the metrics of compliance that we follow, right? And this emerging, data compliance factor is becoming a real challenge for everyone. So you're talking about California privacy law, you're talking about GDPR, you're talking about whatnot.
And we have
PDPA
the one
is now
in India also
right.
now.
So PDPA it's still a bill, but it will
Yeah.
come anytime. Now, do you think it's a value add if you are adding compliance metrics to your offering in the market? I mean, I don't know whether it is possible, how it is possible, etc. But like other services which are on cloud, they have this metrics. So, for example, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Amazon. Go ahead. He already used the word once. He already said Amazon once.
So, say, give an example that we have got Shield, right? I'm not saying AWS.
Yeah, that's.
So, AWS Shield gives you a flexibility in terms of choosing which instances of yours complies with this particular metrics of compliance.
Yes.
Right? Can database have this ability? Because this gives a lot of people a lot of relaxation in terms of the contractual requirement. You understand? And also fulfill it actually. When you know that this particular database can fulfill the requirement of this, you have expertise also to drive and cure that, right? So this is something which is a recommendation. If at all we can include this metrics of compliance into the offering, this really solves a lot of purpose, for us.
So I'll speak on behalf of Jatin as well to some extent, but a lot of work, Nikhil, has already happened in this area on granular compliance, on checksum metrics, on maker checker sort of, and that's the reason why the two engineering teams work very closely, because we not. So let's look at compliance. PCI DSS, for example, a lot of you who are in payments, HIPAA, those who are in healthcare. So not only is the platform HIPAA certified, but the product, Mongodb Atlas that runs on top of it, is also HIPAA compliant. And we'll give you that undertaking reports, both the auditing of the underlying platform and the tech being compliant to PCI DSS, HIPAA, etc. But we'll also give you the ability to build your compliance on top of it, because security at the end of the day in a cloud environment is a shared responsibility model. So off the cloud, within that platform is taken care of by the cloud service provider or by the platform service provider, and then the compliance of the application itself is sort of left to the customers to do for themselves. So I think keeping that in mind, a lot of the work has been done. So for example, for MongoDB itself, the recent announcements in their recent updates have a lot to do around like granular security, down to whatever level of so integration, for example, for IAM users on who accesses what, who has what levels of access. It's gone down to that granularity, and the ability for us, for example, in our monitoring tools like Stackdriver, etc., comparative compared to. So we have a pretty robust system to do that on Google Cloud as well. So there's work. I'm not saying it's a perfect world. Databases are harder to do. I mean, on a VM, you can say, I pulled up this VM, is port 80 open or is port 443 open for the world? And it gives you a compliance check, yes, no. Database is harder because there are data structures and there is tables and there are columns and then there are views and then there are, so many other elements and access into that. So I think from that standpoint, slightly harder problem to solve because of the complexity of it being an application itself. But I think significant work has happened and is happening to improve that.
Yeah, so I'll only add incremental to what Naren said. I think from the compliance standpoint, and as Naren pointed out, it's a shared responsibility. It has to be a people, process, and technology. So from the technology standpoint, no matter how much a platform or the underlying cloud provider gives from the security, various compliances there, it has to be the people and the process side as well, which needs to be compliant there. Having said that, from the MongoDB data platform side, we follow different compliances, but the biggest challenge what comes with the compliances is that different countries or different regions have their own sort of compliances there. So no matter if we are compliant on the PCI DSS side or the HIPAA side or different compliances, when it comes to very localized compliances, this is where certain challenges or hiccups comes in. And I think it's a work in progress area where we are trying to make sure that we are compliant at the very localized level as well. But yeah, this is something feedback taken.
Thank you so much, everyone. We are on top of the hour. So I just want to conclude by saying that while, of course, a modern data platform is definitely going to be the key when it comes to propelling your data-driven strategy forward. But like we discussed in the last round, I think the people and the processes building that culture of data-driven organization is equally important. So thank you so much.